All right, I beg your pardon. We seem to be getting breaking news coming in right now where we're hearing that the Supreme Court has asked Justice Mukul Mudgal's committee to whether they would be interested in continuing with the investigation into match fixing in the IPL. We're hearing that they've been given until 2 o'clock to respond to this. Boria Majumdar joins me right now with details on this breaking story. Boria, what are you hearing?
You know, what I'm hearing is the Supreme Court has asked the Mukul Mudgal committee to say by 2 p.m, as you rightly said, Pierre, whether they want to continue with the match-fixing investigations with investigative powers. So that is the crucial point. So the Supreme Court is actually investing investigative powers into the members of the Mukul Mudgal committee, and they are being given 3 hours time. They have to come back to the Supreme Court by 2 p.m. today, whether they feel that they can continue with this investigation into spot fixing and match fixing. This is an absolutely huge development as far as this spot fixing scandal goes. Clearly then, we can infer that the Supreme Court has rejected the BCCI's panel. It is reposing faith in its own panel, which is the Mukul Mudgal committee that was investigating the IPL spot fixing and match fixing scandal, which had already worked for 4 months. Clearly the Supreme Court wants the Justice Mukul Mudgal committee to continue, and they are now investing it with further powers, investigative powers, and they have been asked to come back to the Supreme Court by 2 p.m. I can also tell you that Gopal Subramaniam had been asked by the Mukul Mudgal committee to serve as amicus curiae on behalf of the Mukul Mudgal committee to the Supreme Court. So that was what was happening over the last 45 minutes in court, and this is a massive development as far as Indian cricket is concerned. One, the BCCI's panel in all practical purposes stand rejected. The Mukul Mudgal panel has been asked by the Supreme Court to deliberate and come back with investigative powers if they want to continue to investigate the probe.
And this, Boria, as you were mentioning, a major blow to the board, not least because of the huge conflicts of interest that were outlined by the petitioner in this case when the board named its own investigation committee.
Absolutely correct. And on the Sunday, what happened in that emergent working committee meeting, again, something that we had put out on headlines today last evening, that every member of the BCCI panel had issues with conflict of interest. Ravi Shastri is a paid employee of the board. Mr. Raghavan has a club in Tamil Nadu under TNCA, the Calm Youth Cricket Club, and Justice J.N. Patel happens to be a very close relative of the BCCI interim president Shivlal Yadav. So clearly there were issues of conflict of interest which could have cast aspersions on the credibility of this committee. Clearly the Supreme Court has not been satisfied. That is why, obviously for that reason, they are asking the Justice Mukul Mudgal committee that we will invest investigative powers in you. Are you willing to take responsibility and conduct this investigation further?
And I want to come back to the news that just broke, Boria, because it seems that the Mukul Mudgal committee had some pretty strong observations about what was going on in Indian cricket, and particularly in the IPL. It seems that there will be very little chance for anyone who is named in that report now to get away with what they've been accused of doing.
Pierre, let's be objective here. The Mukul Mudgal committee is very clear that these reports, the names, are in the nature of allegations. So whether or not these allegations are verified or whether or not they are substantiated will be decided in future. For the moment, they have been asked if they are willing to probe this further and take the matter further, because that is how the Supreme Court clearly feels the credibility of this game will stand restored. Whether or not the Mukul Mudgal committee will agree to do that, we will know in about 2 to 2.5 hours from now. But for the moment, as you rightly said, the development is pretty huge, that the Supreme Court has asked the Mukul Mudgal committee whether or not they are interested in conducting the investigation with investigative powers. Now you must also know that Justice Mukul Mudgal's name and L. Nageshwar Rao's name were rejected by the BCCI working committee. They were not even put to vote. So in that sense, this is a massive development, because these two names were mentioned in the Sunday's emergent working committee meeting by Shashank Manohar and Jagmohan Dalmia, and both names were turned down by the BCCI working committee.
All right, Boria, stay with us. I understand Shimon Ray was inside the court when this request by the Supreme Court was made to the Mukul Mudgal committee. Shimon joins us live right now. Shimon, what can you tell us about what happened?
Well, the first thing is, as Buria was mentioning, that this is a huge development in the context that what Mudgal has been all along saying, that there needs further investigation. So Supreme Court endorsing that view, and also the fact that an appointment, the judge who Mudgal committee had appointed, in fact, he has been asked whether, in fact, Mudgal committee has been asked whether they are prepared for this or not. It's a huge development. Also the fact that Supreme Court, it seems, that is not letting the BCCI any kind of reprieve, because they were in a mood. I talked to some of the BCCI officials before they were here. In fact, they were in a mood that they will endorse the BCCI panel. That has not happened. So clearly it seems that Supreme Court is not in a mood to give any kind of reprieve to the BCCI.
Did they mention anything about this three-member committee and the board's own contention that this three-man committee that it formed be asked to continue with the investigation?
Well, at this moment it seems that they have talked about adjourn the hearing till 2 p.m. and clearly the ball is in Mudgal's court, and the Supreme Court is not willing to listen to any of the BCCI petition right now, because they are in a mood to know whether the Mudgal committee is and Mudgal and the petitioner against the BCCI. They are willing to endorse the view of Supreme Court, and they are prepared the name suggested by Supreme Court.
All right, Shimon, stay with us. I want to go back to Boria about another issue that cropped up in this hearing. Boria, that is of the transcripts of the testimonies that were provided to the Mukul Mudgal committee. The board wanted them to be handed over so that it could scrutinize those transcripts. Any word on what happened there?
That is why Gopal Subramaniam was appointed by the Mukul Mudgal committee as amicus curiae, on the suggestions and the instructions of the Supreme Court on the 16th of April. That's not something that has been taken forward, Pierre, because if the Mukul Mudgal committee is being asked to investigate further, clearly these transcripts will not be handed over to the BCCI. Now the entire decision will be on Justice Mudgal and L. Nageshwar Rao and Niloy Datta. All these three members will have to now decide on whether or not they are willing to investigate. I'm pretty much sure that the entire cricket country, fraternity, world will want to see what Justice Mudgal's committee says before the Supreme Court by 2 p.m. Shumon Roy, their reporting for us, was absolutely correct when he said that this clearly doesn't give any reprieve whatsoever to the BCCI, and for all practical purposes tells the world that the Supreme Court is in no mood to accept the BCCI's three-member probe panel. So that point of reporting that Shumon was saying is absolutely spot on from inside the court. In fact, why don't you ask him that if there was any development on the transcript point, because I know for a fact that Gopal Subramaniam was arguing on behalf of the Mukul Mudgal committee as an amicus curiae.
Shumon, if you heard that question from Boria, take it.
Well, as of now, it hasn't, but it is, as Boria has been saying, that it is absolutely on cards, and though it all depends on what at 2 p.m. what is going to happen, but as of now, the focus remained on the committee suggested by Supreme Court to Mudgal, and that's as per now. But as Boria was mentioning, that the transcript issue is going to come up, and it's very likely that the name suggested is going to happen the way it has been.
All right, stay with us, Boria and Suman. I want to introduce Nikhil Chopra, who joins us in our studios, a former Indian cricketer himself. Nikhil, what happened today in the court is very revealing, because it clearly reveals that the board doesn't enjoy the confidence of the court anymore.
Well, the important thing is, I guess, whether it's the BCCI and every other cricket fan in the country, with what's happening in the spot fixing, everybody wants to get to the bottom. They want to understand, they want to know what exactly transpired, if there were malpractices, who are the people involved, because sometimes when the people who are involved, you've got some other names floating around, guilty by association, but that doesn't mean that they've indulged in some sort of malpractices. So in that regard, it makes sense. If at 2 p.m. The Mudgal committees, with the help of some investigators, try and get to the bottom. It's got to be people from the outside, with the help of investigators, because, whether it's people from the BCCI, ex-cricketers, you can only get so far. But the important thing is, you need the help of the investigators to try and get the transcripts from the phone companies. If you're a private body, they could very well refuse. Why should we give it to you? The certain numbers that you're looking to probe. So it's important, get people from the outside, get people from the government agency. That, I believe, might be the right way forward.
Boria, that's an important point that Nikhil raised, and you were mentioning earlier that the court is keen on granting the Mukul Mudgal committee investigative powers, when it comes to things like phone records, because a lot of this depends on who spoke to whom and when and what was said. A lot of this cannot be accessed by a private body. It needs legal sanction for those records to be accessed.
Pierre, before I answer your question, let me break this news that sources are telling me that the likely decision from the Mukul Mudgal committee will be they'll accept it. So that's the big breaking news on headlines today, that at 2 p.m. In all likelihood, sources are telling me that the Mukul Mudgal committee will accept the instruction of the Supreme Court and will agree that they will probe this further. So that's what I'm getting from my sources, that in all likelihood, the Mukul Mudgal committee will agree to investigate the spot fixing and IPL match fixing probe further, having done extensive work objectively and efficiently with tremendous amount of credibility over the last 4 months. They will, and I can tell you this, in all likelihood, they will agree to the Supreme Court's advice and go ahead. So that's the real big breaking news on headlines today, that the BCCI actually is in a real fix at the moment. If the Mukul Mudgal committee accepts to do it, now you understand that on Sunday in the working committee, Justice Mukul Mudgal's name was turned down by the BCCI working committee. L. Nageshwar Rao's name was turned down by the BCCI working committee without even put to vote. Shashank Manohar, the former BCCI president, and Jagmohan Dalmia, the former BCCI president, mentioned these two names, Mukul Mudgal and L. Nageshwar Rao, and both these names were turned down by the BCCI working committee without even put to vote. Now that is the most significant point, that the BCCI did not even put to vote these two names, and now the Supreme Court has actually decided to invest in these two very people the IPL probe. What does that mean for the BCCI? What does that mean for the credibility of the board? And as I told you, sources very, very close to the committee tell me that in all likelihood they will accept it.
And as you mentioned that clearly this is something that as Nikhil was saying, is important, because for fans and that really is the heart of this, isn't it? For fans to finally come to terms with how rotten this the administration of the game has gotten, you need a thorough professional investigation that only an outsider can do.
Absolutely correct. Absolutely correct, Pierre. There is no doubt about it. I mean, if you just look at the media today, take a look at the newspapers, take a look at the television channels, take a look at social media, you will see the BCCI's reputation is in tatters. Shashank Manohar gave an interview saying, it's the lowest in 80 years. Now, if that is what Indian cricket is all about, then where on earth will the ordinary cricket fan look? That is why it is absolutely imperative that the ordinary cricket fan's faith is restored. Now, which committee can do that? Will a committee that comprised of Ravi Shastri, Raghavan and Justice J.N. Patel do that when all of them are mired in conflict of interest? Will the cricket fan of the country believe that a credible probe is possible? Or will the Mudgal committee, which has been appointed by the Supreme Court, stand more chance to do a credible probe? The jury is out on that. The Supreme Court is very clear what it wants. The BCCI is in a serious soup. Believe you me, they've got no reprieve whatsoever. Shuman Roy was candid and categoric there when he broke that news from the court. I told you from the very start, and now I told you that having spoken to sources, the Mukul Mudgal committee will agree to this. And if they do agree to this, what does that mean for the BCCI and its working committee? Because they stand very thoroughly discredited, having not even put to vote the names of Mukul Mudgal and L. Nageshwar Rao. Will you ask that question of my friend Nikhil Chopra, please? That by not putting these two names to vote, even on Sunday, what does that do to the BCCI? Do they not stand discredited at this point in time?
Yeah, Nikhil,
at the end of the day, it was the Mudgal panel that got them to go out there and put their report in front of the apex court and then take it forward. But I guess at this moment in time, now that they might go ahead and investigate, but the important thing, I keep repeating myself, they've got to be given investigative powers or with the help of some sort of government agencies. Only then will we get to the bottom of this. At the end of the day, the BCCI's job is to go out there and run the game. Even if they have their own panel to investigate, they can only reach so far because they cannot be an investigative agency. So if it goes towards the Mudgal committee, I'm very happy, because at the end of the day, even as a cricket fan, as an ex-cricketer, I want to know what actually transpired. Were there any sort of malpractices in the previous IPL season or not?
Yeah, Buria, I understand you want to make another point over here. Go ahead.
Taking a cue from what Nikhil Chopra was saying, he's absolutely correct. In fact, in the Supreme Court's observations, if I understand right from my sources, the Supreme Court is investing investigative powers, Pierre. That is something that they have already told the Mudgal committee, that they will have investigative powers and can take the help of investigative agencies of their choice. So clearly, the Supreme Court too wants to get to the root of the problem, and they too seem to be pretty disgusted with what is going on in this country. So just endorsing the point that Nikhil Chopra was making, that they will, the Mukul Mudgal committee, if they accept it, and I can tell you they will accept it in all likelihood, they will have investigative powers and can draw upon any investigative agency that they deem fit.
That is huge news. Buria, stand by. But, all of this happening at a time when season 7 of the IPL continues. Nikhil, if I can come to you on that question, because players and who might be obliquely involved in this, at least the teams that are certainly named in that report earlier, what would it be like for them to be playing under the shadow of these allegations?
Well, to be honest, once you step onto that cricket field, you forget about whatever's happening because those are things beyond your control. As a player if you're involved, if you're not involved. People who might be involved, they might be scared because they'll be playing under the shadow. But people who are not involved, and like I said, if their names are flouting around, but as an individual, if you've done anything wrong, you need to be worried. Otherwise, you just carry on with the game.
Nikhil Chopra, Buria Majumdar, Shimon Rai, stay with us. We have to take a break right now, but big news coming from the Supreme Court. The court has asked the Mukul Mudgal committee whether it wants to investigate the IPL match fixing further, and we're hearing from sources of Buria Majumdar's that the Mukul Mudgal committee is likely to accept that role with investigating powers. Stay tuned for more updates to headlines today.